Hello and welcome to episode 113 of Driver Suit Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. So last week was a spring break of sorts for me, and I badly needed a break. And with that, I'm back, and I'm going to start with my thoughts on the debuts of IndyCar and the NHRA. First, we start with the IndyCar on NBC. The one complaint that I have about the way NBC does their IndyCar telecasts is that the DVR, when it starts recording, it literally starts just before the field comes to the green flag. Now, granted, I am not opposed to cutting out bullshit, but let's at least start the DVR recording with the command. Other than that, not really much to report. That was my only complaint, and the telecast was actually really good, and the racing was fun to watch, as it always is. Okay, now we move on to the Fox network of channels. Specifically, we start with the NHRA on FS1. Seriously, what the fuck? Why in the world would you broadcast the first two rounds live and then tape delay the semifinals by almost 11 hours? Oh, you wanted to show college basketball? Great. In the process of doing that, you've made the Gator Nationals one of the NHRA's premier events, and the opening event of the season seemed pretty much meaningless. And I get that in terms of ratings draw, the NHRA is not on the level of NASCAR or the NCAA, but why not just tape delay the whole event instead of just showing the first half of the event live and then the other half, at 11 hours later? Above and beyond that, the telecast on Sunday night, the tape delayed one, was really hard to follow if you hadn't watched the first two rounds. And this is the kind of clown show bullshit that drives away fans. Right now, racing is in a precarious position with TV audiences. Wrestling is too, but that's another matter. And this type of crap doesn't help. I really think that the NHRA should examine its contract with Fox and FS1 if they don't want to lose more fans. Speaking of endings that ruin the event as a whole, let's talk about the race at Phoenix, the Xfinity race at Phoenix, specifically the 2024 Call811.com Every Dig Every Time 200. Yes, that is the name of the race. So, Adam Alexander, normally in the play-by-play booth, had a death in the family, and a new play-by-play announcer was needed for the race. So, Fox and FS1, in their infinite wisdom, decided to put Jamie freaking Little in the booth. You don't talk Mike Joy into the booth. You put Jamie Little in the booth. She's so bad at what she does that every race she calls, she trends on Twitter for how bad she is. And since I ended up watching the race live, I couldn't fast forward, unfortunately. And there were times I actually had to mute the TV because I couldn't stand her play-by-play. Now, as bad as she was throughout the course of the race, the end of the race was actually worse. Because as soon as Chandler Smith crosses the finish line, between Jamie's lack of energy and the broadcast split-screening into an infield care center interview with Justin Allgaier, it almost like Fox and FS1 went out of their way to make the finish seem meaningless. And again, NASCAR isn't the draw it used to be, but it did average 1.0787 million fans for the FS1 telecast. Racing fans don't like the idea of being treated like they're not important. This is why Fox left. This is why NASCAR left ESPN. This is why NASCAR left Turner. This new TV deal is for a decent amount of money, and Fox and FS1 obviously want to make it back, but if the networks act like FS1 did at Phoenix, this isn't going to pan out. And again, viewers tuning out is not a minor issue. Last year, outside of the Chicago race, only 4 races gained viewers from the previous seasons. This year, we're seeing a different phenomenon because all 3 of the non-weather delayed races, Atlanta, Las Vegas, and Phoenix, have gained viewers from the previous season. Fans are coming back, finally. This is a good thing. Why would Fox and FS1 try to ruin that? The NHRA is a decent draw for FS1, and they went out of their way to make the telecast unwatchable. The Xfinity Series is a decent draw for FS1, but between Jamie's lack of energy in the booth and the Allgaier interview as the race was ending, that ending was one of the worst endings I've ever seen. People, listen to the fans on Twitter. If an overwhelming majority of them say that something sucks, listen to them. Fans can and will stop watching if they feel insulted. And this last weekend, boy, were they ever. Now, let's talk about the NHRA on FS1 with their ratings, because this should tell you all you need to know. Now, the first two rounds were live at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 a.m. Pacific. They did a 0.17 with rating with 256,000 viewers. Now, the jumbled mess of a telecast with the final two rounds at 9:10 p.m. Eastern did a 0.20 rating with 341,000 viewers. Oh, and by the way, both of these lost to the 1:30 a.m. edition of SportsCenter Weekend, by the way. And I get that college basketball is a big draw, and I get the importance of college basketball. I get it. I don't like college basketball, but I get it. But there had to have been a better way to handle the Gator Nationals telecast. And this is from a Sports Media Watch article from 1 year ago. And this should really tell you all you need to know. Quote, the NHRA season opener from Gainesville averaged a 0.58 rating and 945,000 viewers on the Fox broadcast network, up 16% from the series averages on the network last season, parentheses 818,000. Last year's opener from Pomona took place a month earlier, was tape delayed on FS1, averaging just 235,000 viewers, end quote. So to understand how stupid of a move this was, in 3 years, 2022 to 2024, we've gone from 235,000 viewers to 945,000 viewers. Excuse me, I got my numbers wrong here. In 4 years, from 2021 to 2024, we've gone from 235,000 viewers to 818,000 viewers to 945,000 viewers to 256,000 viewers in a 4-year span. At the end of At the end of the 2023 season, I was excited about the way the NHRA was gaining viewers and gaining traction in the U.S. I was happy that the NHRA was gaining steam, especially with Open Wheel doing well, IndyCar and F1 in terms of TV ratings. If they fuck this up, the rest of the season will not. If the rest of the season is anything more like the Gator Nationals, these teams are going to be around for long. Okay, I'm done ranting about TV, and I'm done ranting about TV ratings. Now we're going to discuss something a little more controversial. And if you don't want to listen to this, you can skip forward or click off. I won't blame you for either. We're going to talk about the Formula One, specifically Red Bull F1, because something happened with the Christian Horner situation that frankly, it just stuns me how anybody could be out of touch to this extent. But it's also proving that the Formula One is basically a billionaire boys club. So Red Bull team principal Christian Horner was accused of sexual misconduct by a female Red Bull Racing employee, and despite numerous amounts of evidence, Horner was cleared of any wrongdoing. Now, Red Bull's Austrian parent company, they basically released this F1. It's basically a bullshit PR statement. Quote, Red Bull can confirm that the grievance has been dismissed. Red Bull is confident the investigation has been fair, rigorous, and impartial. Yeah, right. The investigation report is confidential and contains private information of the parties and third parties who assisted in the investigation, and we will not be coming further out of respect for all involved. Red Bull will continue striving to meet the highest workplace standards, end quote. Another one of these, let's have the PR department issue a statement basically saying, yeah, we investigated ourselves and we found ourselves not guilty. Well, in most instances, this would be enough. But for Red Bull, they just want to dig themselves deeper because it became clear that the accuser afterwards wasn't going down without a fight and promptly released a series of text messages between the two. I'm not going to read them here, but let's just say they are very overt in their wording. Apparently, this wasn't considered or it was ignored. And then the accuser, she was recently suspended from Red Bull, also as a result of this whole thing. Now, granted, she is getting full pay with suspension and has the ability to appeal the decision. If I were her, I'd leave, wouldn't come back. It's sort of been a thing for a while that sports teams really only focus on winning. Now, granted, there are teams that are focusing on ethics more and more, but some teams just, they don't care. As long as they're winning, they don't care how much of a piece of shit you are. Look at some of the things players have gotten away with in the past. Look at Bobby Petrino. He is an absolute sack of shit who's screwed over every team he's coached with, and he can still get a coaching job in college football. It's literally, the question is being asked, who cares about ethics when we can win at sports? And if I was the accuser in this situation, I'd run. I'd run to another job. Again, Christian Horner is getting protection from consequences in the face of wrongdoing with obviously clear evidence. Okay, that's already been established. But if he wasn't as high as he was, he'd probably be gone. If Red Bull was a mid to the back of the pack team, he'd also be gone. But since he's with the defending champions, he's pretty much the architect. He's not going anywhere. Because again, Red Bull cares more about winning at sports than they do about ethics. Red Bull F1 and F1 are just another billionaire boys club where the men can do what they want, abuse women, get away with it, and it makes me sick. And the sad fact is, it's not changing anytime soon. Okay. With that out of the way, I'm going to take my first break, and I will discuss WWE wrestler Maxxine Dupri next, so I will be right back. Welcome back. So I feel the need to discuss the Maxxine Dupri situation. Now, this is one of those situations that happens where people make a stupid move thinking they're doing the right thing, and it just ends up making a bad situation worse. What am I talking about, and why do I think that? Well, let's start with the beginning. Now, after being a cheerleader for the Los Angeles Rams and a dancer for the Phoenix Suns, Maxxine Dupri joined WWE in 2021. She got signed on as a valet or female manager for Von Wagner under the ring name Sophia Cromwell. Well, July of 2022 saw her SmackDown debut, where she debuted the Maxxine Dupri character. Now, this was her being the quote-unquote director of talent for Maximum Male Models, a short-lived stable with her quote-unquote brother, Max Dupri, LA Knight, and their two models, Massey and Mansour, or Mason Mansour, as they were previously known. By mid-October of that year, Max Dupri became LA Knight. The stable had been moved to Raw, and Maxxine started a storyline with Otis of Alpha Academy, which would eventually see her debuting with Alpha Academy, and Mason Mansour are now no longer with the company. Now, at the time of recording, she's had about, 14 matches or so, but her in-ring work is decidedly not good. It looks to me like she was rushed through developmental. She didn't really wrestle in NXT, and right now she is clearly in over her head, and this has not gone unnoticed by fans. So the trouble starts at a California house show in late February where Maxine was booed out of the building by the fans. Now, video of this incident shows that Maxine is clearly upset by all the booing. Well, as this tends to happen, it went viral, and all of the female WWE talent came to her release. Now, came to her defense, not release. I will discuss them coming to her defense in a little bit. So, not long thereafter, Maxine did an interview where she said the following, quote, "It was insane. I was just telling somebody when I got the text that I had that match, I was just waiting for just kidding text. Like, there's no way. Me? So it was terrifying that I was going to throw up. However, it was such a pleasure to work with somebody who's so talented and has such an incredible premise. I definitely jumped straight into the deep end, not fully prepared. However, I think that match will always be a pivotal match in my career because that's where it shifted. I was like, okay, I have to change my training, I have to change what I'm doing so I can have a better chance against her in the future. So it was a really pivotal moment for me and a turning point in my career." She really needs to work on her public speaking too. Now, the response to this was actually accurately summed up by Dave Meltzer. Now, I don't like Dave Meltzer, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. This is his take on the Maxine booing. Quote, "If you're a wrestler, get mad at the company for putting her in that position. Don't get mad at the fans. If the fans see a bad match, they've got the right to boo. And even if they see a good match, they've got the right to boo. There's a line, and now I think we're getting way too sensitive. I'm going to get ripped because it involves women, but that's just my feeling. If you're a pro, Jesus Christ, that's part of being a pro wrestler. If you say something racial, if you say something badly sexist in this age at the arena, then fucking shut them up. Yell back at them, tell security, whatever. But just booing somebody or saying you suck, that doesn't cross the line of behavior that fans shouldn't be doing." Yeah, it's what I've said before. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the spotlight. Meltzer said it. I basically agree. You in your life, Maxine, made the decision to be a public figure. There was no gun to your head. There was no bomb to your chest. You willingly chose to try out and eventually sign with WWE. You know what? You make the choice to be a public figure, you accept everything that comes with it. And this means she accepted to get booed for not being a good worker. You chose this life. You chose to accept this. But also, why shouldn't fans be allowed to boo her? In the various defenses, people said, well, she's a nice person. Oh, she has really good energy. I like sharing a locker room with her. Yeah, okay. I don't want to see amateur hour bullshit when I want to see professionals in WWE. WWE, you expect to see top-tier professionals. That's just how it goes. Maxine Dupri is clearly not ready for prime time. She's in over her head. She hasn't had any real training. And if it's a house show and I'm paying money and I'm leaving my house and I'm traveling to an arena and I'm, going through the turnstiles, I want to see good matches or at least decent matches from top to bottom. When you have a match with a woman who looks like a newborn fawn on ice in the ring and doesn't have any idea how to sell things, it's not a good match. Maxine simply isn't there yet. And for all intents and purposes, I don't think she ever will be. Maybe she is a nice person. Maybe she has great energy. Guess what? I'm judging you by the same yardstick I judge every other wrestler. How is your work in the ring? You can't work well, then I'm not going to consider you a good wrestler. Period. So, as does happen with these controversies, all of the female talent jumped to her defense. Because, again, they talked about social media, about how much energy she has and how nice she is and how good she is in the locker room. Well, there's a problem with this. And others have pointed this out. I'm going to point it out again. When you take the approach of defending somebody who's being booed and who's obviously emotionally upset by it, you're giving the fans the rope they need to hang her with. You do understand that, right? Oh, hey, everybody. Maxine gets sad when you boo her, so let's call as much attention to it as humanly possible, which will end up getting her booed more. How could that possibly go wrong? Bottom line is this. Maxine's over her head, again, and WWE can be blamed for putting her in this position, but that doesn't mean that she didn't choose to be there in the first place. Like I said before, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the spotlight. And I don't understand how so many public figures can be so thin-skinned when you've made the choice in your life to be a public figure. If you don't like being criticized, then don't be a public figure. Take off your wrestling gear, put on a suit, and go sell insurance. Or go work in a warehouse. Or get an office job. You chose this life. You chose to accept everything that comes with it, and like it or not, the world isn't changing. And by the way, you're probably making more money in a month than most wrestling fans make in a year, so learn to deal with it. If you can't stand being criticized, pull yourself off the cross, use the wood to build a bridge, and get the fuck over it. Thank you, Christopher Titus, because I could have said it better myself. She chose this life. She chose to accept that part of life. Life sucks, but it is what it is. So I'm going to take another break, and immediately after that, we're going to talk about some more lighthearted cheating moments in sports. I'll be right back. Welcome back. So recently, one of my favorite YouTube channels, AmGlimps, did a story on some lesser-known cheating scandals. Now, this is a channel that's done some videos on cheating scandals, but this particular video was a very fun watch since there's a lot of obscure ones that most people have never heard of before. Now, I'm going to link both the channel and the video in the description, but there were two stories that were so amazing to me in terms of just how stupid everything was that I just have to talk about them. Now, our first story takes us to the Rock Hill Sports and Events Center at Rock Hill, South Carolina. To explain everything that happened, I will be quoting the text of a New York Post article entitled Professional Cornhole World Rocked by Baggate Cheating Scandal, as by Patrick Riley, again, link in the description. Quote, "It's the biggest professional sports scandal you've never heard of. Professional cornhole has been rocked by controversy after the top-ranked team was using illegal beanbags at the 2022 American Cornhole League World Championships in August. Dubbed Baggate, the now infamous incident began when player Devon Harbaugh complained that rival opponents Mark Richards and Philip Lopez were using bags that were smaller than regulation during the finals, which were broadcast live on ESPN. I thought the bags were too thin, Harbaugh told the Wall Street Journal, and he was right. Officials gathered to inspect Lopez and Richards' beanbags and confirmed that they were, in fact, not regulation size. They're too small, ESPN cornhole color commentator, God, that's a job description I hope I never have, remarked. This is going to cause some drama. According to ACL regulations, cornhole bags must be 6 inches by 6 inches when laid flat and weighed 16 ounces with minor variations tolerated. A 1-hour delay ensued before officials determined that the violations were not intentional and decided to continue the competition with a $15,000 cash prize at stake. It's, quote, "It's possible, but I'm pretty confident that it wasn't intentional," ACL spokesman Trey Ryder told the Wall Street Journal regarding cheating allegations. Cornhole, a staple that has Cornhole, I can't talk tonight. Okay. Cornhole, a staple at tailgates and barbecues, has rapidly evolved from the simple yard game that can be played while drinking beer to serious competition with professional athletes and sponsors, and it's just getting bigger. At the time of this article, there are currently 155,000 members of the American Cornhole League, which is up 30,000 members from 2021. The league hosted 22,000 events in 2022, up from 14,000 in 2021, the Wall Street Journal reported. ACL's top players can earn as much as $250,000 a year from sponsorship deals and endorsements and winnings. I'm gonna have a sip of water real quick. Now, back to the article. With such a major expansion and influx of money, players have been doing whatever they can to get a leg up on the competition, including doctoring their bags. Lighter and thinner bags can be advantageous to players. Advantageous to players, and they have been boiling their bags or washing them with vinegar to make them more pliable. You have the average players that try everything to make the bag do different things. Nate Voyer, a cornhole professional, another job description I don't really want, told the Journal. Voyer chooses to wash his bag with a little fabric softener and letting it air dry. Harbaugh denied manipulating his bags for the ACL World Championship. Honestly, it could be anything, he says. Definitely unintentional. His opponent Lopez also said he doesn't know how his bag shrunk, denying that he boiled them. In response to Baggate, ACL has had to step up its policing. We have had to crack down to make sure that all these bags are to spec. Internally, we've had to invest more into our compliance. More and more bags than ever have been rejected for the upcoming season when random bag checks will be put in place. The league is also exploring automatic bag testing. I have the maturity level of a 5-year-old. Sorry. Okay, anyway, back to the article. We believe that we are taking a major step, Ryder added. Eric Marvin, president of the American Cornhole Association, which calls itself the original and official governing body of cornhole, said new team rules and regulations will be announced by the end of the year. You're going to see some big shifts and movements in the infrastructure of the sport, Marvin said. This is where sport's involved. Professional cornholer Jay Corley told the Journal that he sees only one solution for the rapidly growing game. I think we're going to have a referee just like every other sport. End of the article. You know, I ain't exactly a genius. I'm not a Harvard valedictorian. It's a little bit too complexurized for a boy like me, but I have an idea. This problem could have been very easily solved a long time ago. It's so good and it's so simple, but it's foolproof. You know how we prevent this? You want to hear my idea? Listen. When it comes to tournaments, all the American Cornhole Association would have had to have done is issue the beanbag to the teams at tournaments starting at the beginning of the matches. So instead of bringing your own beanbags, you're using officially issued ones that you can't doctor. I know, right? Sounds like a good idea. Okay, obvious question. Why isn't this being done? How would this not be done at this point? It would keep the playing field level and would prevent teams from illegally modifying their beanbags. Why wasn't this done at the start of any tournament? Why would you give the teams the ability to cheat and pretty much not regulate it? Why would you allow teams to bring their own beanbags? That's just an open invitation for cheating. And it's also amazing how a lack of sense can create multiple cheating situations because, again, going back to the article, there's the final quote, I think we're going to have to go to having a referee just like any other sport. Okay, why wouldn't you have a referee at a world championship event? Why wouldn't you have referees at tournaments, period? It's almost like they went out of their way to foster cheating. This is a clown show. When you are the biggest and most well-known name in any sport, I don't give a fuck what that sport is, and your rules are so lax that anybody can cheat and get away with it, yeah, it is fair to question whether or not you're capable of doing this shit. What the fuck? Literally, have a referee and use regulation league-issued beanbags. How do you not do that from day one? This is a clown show. But this next story is even more of a clown show. We're going to be moving on to England, specifically to St. Peter Port and Guernsey. Now, the star of this show, Matt Clark, found himself in a bit of a pickle in 2013. He worked for the St. Peter Port Aquarium and owed his boss £1,500, which he was not able to pay back. So, you are Matt Clark in this situation. What do you do? Do you agree to have part of your paycheck cut out until the debt is paid off? Do you agree to do household repairs or chores or help the guy out for free until the debt is paid off? Do you work out a payment plan? Hey, I'll pay you £25 a week or £50 a week. Well, Matt Clark did have a plan that he was sure that was going to work. Now, this is from an article from the Daily Mail, link in the description. He, quote, he hatched a plan to break into the aquarium that he used to work at and steal a fish to win a competition before returning it to its tank and use the prize-winning cash to pay off some of his debt. At 6:30 p.m. on July 9th last year, the final day of the Bailiwick Bass Club Open competition, Clark scaled the cliffs and climbed a rope ladder to reach the building before he entered the aquarium through a back door. As he was escaping, the bungling raider dropped his fish, and as he was making escape and injured it, but managed to pick it up and carried it to the 8 p.m. weigh-in, where at a nearby fishing tackle shop, and the nearby fishing shop tackled direct. The enormous fish tipped the scales at 13 pounds and 13 ounces, trouncing its nearest competitor, who had only managed to catch a 10-pound 3-ounce fish. Clark was congratulated by the other contestants and was due to pick up his winnings at a ceremony later in the week. However, fellow entrant Shane Bentley thought that he had seen the winning fish before. Speaking before the hearing, he said, "Me and my wife were taking the kids to the aquarium and we seen a bass in a tank. It stood up because it had some very distinct markings on his head. I'd gone to congratulate the winner because I heard it was a monster, and when I saw it, I thought, heck, that's a beauty. It wasn't until it was lifted out of the tank for the photo that I thought, wait a minute, that's the fish from the aquarium. I immediately informed club members of my suspicion, but then they laughed. The next morning, I took 10 minutes off work to go to the aquarium, but they hadn't opened yet, but the woman let me in, and I said, where's the big bass with the marks on his head? I looked in the tank, but I couldn't see the fish. Then the woman looked as well. She couldn't find the fish. She called the owner down, and he couldn't see the fish. Now, Mr. Bentley, who has been fishing for more than 25 years, immediately contacted competition organizers, who in turn alerted police. Officials seized the head from the winning fish carcass and photographs of the missing bass as evidence they investigated. A spokesman for the aquarium said that Clark had intended to return the sea bass, but panicked and sold it to a fishmonger instead, who killed it. Well, sounds like Mr. Clark made things worse for himself. And no good deed goes unpunished, and there were criminal charges placed. Going back to the Daily Mail article, quote, he was today ordered by a judge to carry out 100 hours of community service after he admitted burglary and fraud charges. Judge Philip Willoughby told Clark that his acts had been, quote, mean to the aquarium and anglers, but spared him a jail sentence. He also ordered that Clark take an oath of good behavior for 2 years and told him that he would face jail time if he broke the sentence handed to him at Guernsey Magistrates Courts in the Channel Islands. End quote. What makes me laugh about this, and what I think is just hilarious about this the whole story is funny. I mean, I do feel bad that the aquarium's out of fish, but it's not like fish are impossible to get. But what I love about this scheme is no matter how you slice it, no matter what angle you look at it from, there is no way in hell that this would have worked out positive for Matt Clark. Why he thought this would work is mind-numbing to me. It wasn't like he just walked down the street to an aquarium. He had to scale up cliffs and climb a rope ladder. What is this, like a fucking medieval castle attack where you're scaling the castle walls to get in? Then he thought for a while he could sneak back in with the fish, which is now injured because he dropped it, and just replace it like nobody would notice that the fish was gone, and nobody would notice that when it came back it was injured. No matter how you slice it, this was going to fail. But he went with it anyway. I have a feeling, and this is just, I haven't done any more research on this, but I'm willing to bet that he's probably been banned from every fishing tournament in his area, if not the country. I have a feeling that, his family, he doesn't even have his family anymore because they were just like embarrassed by him. So this guy's pretty much just lost everything, and I don't feel bad for him. Again, you could have worked out, there were plenty of ways to deal with this situation. He just decided to go as grandiose as possible, and he has no one to blame but himself for the fact that his reputation and his family are now gone. So, way to suck, little buddy. Way to suck. And with that, episode 113 comes to an end. I'll figure out something for next week. I'm Dave Frozen. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you then.